For one young woman, life followed a pattern of sudden, inexplicable collapse. Every time a marriage proposal reached the final stages of being settled, the arrangement would dissolve for no apparent reason, mirroring a physical health that was also in a state of constant, unexplained decline. Beneath the surface of these failed milestones was a specific diagnosis, a severe case of sikh, or black magic. It wasn't an abstract feeling of bad luck, but a targeted spiritual affliction that was actively sabotaging her ability to move forward. She attempted to fight back with every available tool. She cycled through heavy medications, psychiatric counseling sessions, and professional ruqya, an authentic spiritual treatment where experts recite specific verses to neutralize the effects of the magic. This chart tracks the stability of her condition. Each spike represents an intervention, a session providing a brief window of peace. But as the line shows, that relief would always decay, bottoming out in a violent drop, leaving her more exhausted than before. These treatments were passive. They were things being done to her by others. While they could suppress the symptoms for a few days, they couldn't reach the source of an affliction that had become deeply integrated into her daily life. Eventually, the exhaustion became total. She hit a wall of resentment, wondering why she, someone who had never harmed anyone, was being allowed to suffer this way. This is where the affliction becomes most dangerous. It stops being a matter of health or marriage and starts becoming a crisis of faith, using the pain to plant constant whispers of doubt about why her prayers aren't being answered. She didn't need another temporary remedy. To break the pattern, she had to stop being the subject of the treatment and start taking direct authority over her own recovery. She eventually sought counsel from a scholar who listened to her history of failed treatments. He acknowledged that every conventional, passive avenue had been exhausted. His response was to move her from patient to practitioner. He presented her with a 10-point daily protocol, a set of specific spiritual and social actions she would have to perform herself every single day without exception. There was one condition. She had to promise to stay committed even when she felt most hopeless. He warned her that the process itself would trigger intense periods of demotivation, and she would have to push through those moments of resistance. The success of the protocol depended on consistency. It was designed to test her endurance, to see if she could maintain the habits even when her personal drive was completely gone. The protocol's first pillar, internal connection, required direct daily prayer to God during historically effective windows. The second pillar, external empathy, forced her focus outward, requiring active prayer and physical assistance for widows, the sick, and others in need. Chronic hardship often creates a feedback loop where the mind is trapped in a cycle of why me. By forcing her attention onto the struggles of others, the protocol broke that internal focus, replacing the isolation of her pain with a sense of shared human struggle. The third pillar was spiritual maintenance. Personal sins act as technical vulnerabilities, fractures in a defensive wall that drain a person's resolve. To seal these gaps, constant daily repentance was used to systematically close vulnerabilities and clear mental blockages. She also had to adopt a strict schedule of morning and evening remembrances, including specific prayers before sleep. These weren't just rituals. For her, reciting Surah Mulk at night became a practical tool that ended her recurring nightmares. Finally, she was given a set of specific phrases to use as a manual defense. When a sudden wave of regret or grief hit, she was to immediately recite the words used by the Prophet during times of extreme distress to neutralize the thought before it could take hold. This wasn't a search for a single miracle. It was the construction of a daily system that starved her affliction of the negativity it needed to survive, slowly rebuilding her mental defenses. She followed this 10-point protocol for 1 full month. As the scholar predicted, she faced waves of intense demotivation where she wanted to quit, but she maintained the routine regardless of how she felt. After years of temporary fixes, the cycle finally began to shift. By the end of the month, she returned to the scholar to report that the heaviness had lifted. The chronic health issues and the pattern of broken prospects had been replaced by a sustained sense of relief. A 10-point list can seem like a heavy burden for someone who is already suffering, but the scholar's reasoning was simple. The intensity of the treatment had to match the severity of the crisis she was in. Deeply rooted hardships are rarely solved by looking for a quick fix from someone else. Lasting relief comes when you stop looking for a band-aid and start taking daily, systematic responsibility for your own spiritual and mental state.